50,000 to 400,000 BC, in Palawan and Batangas, Filipinos first made simple tools or weapon of stone, flakes, and then eventually developed technique for sewing, drilling, and polishing hard stones. 1000 BC, producing adze ornaments of seashells and pottery of various design were prominent. 2000 BC, manufacture of pottery became well developed and flourished in the archipelago, but eventually subsided after China porcelain pottery exports took over. 2nd and 3rd BC to 10th AD, appearance of iron industry where Filipinos were engaged in extraction of iron from ore, smelting and refining it, but it also did not survive as it was defeated by iron industry by Sarawak and China. 1st century AD, Filipinos were weaving cotton, smelting iron, making pottery and glass ornaments, and were also engaged in agriculture, particularly in Cordilleras terrace fields were built. Autonomous village. In 1565, Spaniards discovered and scattered autonomous village communities, barangay, all over the archipelago. These communities shows uneven technological development. Settlements near the shore such as Manila, Mindoro, Cebu, and more have attained sophistication. All over, summary of pre-colonial science and technology. The pre-colonial information about the Philippines was still unsure and just highly superstitious. The Spaniards found the temples or places of worship. Although the Filipinos knew how to read and write in their own system, it was mainly used by messages and letters. They seem not to have developed a written literary tradition at the time. This would have led a more systematic accumulation and dissemination of knowledge, condition that is necessary for the development of science and technology. Because of the abundance of natural sources, a benign environment, and generally sparse population, there seems to have been little pressure for invention and innovation among the early Filipinos. As Governor Francisco de Sande observed in 1575, the Filipinos do not understand any kind of work unless it to be to do something actual necessary, such as stakers after their fashion, to fish according to their methods, to row and perform the duties of sailors, to the cultivative the land.
1521 CE, the beginning of Spaniards taking over the Philippines, where reductions were implemented, resulting in the creations of towns. The foundations of the Philippines present systems of local government, centralized political control all over the country, collections of tribute tax, enforcements of compulsory labor services for the locals, and implementations of the compulsory sales of local products to the government. But Filipinos naturally resisted the reductions, resulting in the country's socio-economic educations, dislocations, and decline in agricultural productions and traditional crops. Educations. Through religious order, the colonial education systems was enabled to establish in the Philippines and influence development of technology and promotions of scientific research. At first, the implementations of educations were not effective due to lack of qualified teachers, textbook, other instructional materials, and limited to elite only. By 19th CE, bachelor's and art tests were offered. In the later 19th century, technical and vocational schools were 1565 to 1813 CE established. At the end of this period, bachelor's in pharmacia was granted. Beginning of 18th CE, the Bourbon dynasty ascended to the Spanish throne. This paved the way for more government attentions to the economic development of the Philippines. Enterprising Spaniards began to exploit the mineral wealth of the island, develop its agriculture, and establish industry. 1865. Meteorological studies were promoted by Jesuits who founded the Manila Observatory. The observatory collected and made available typhoon and climatological observations. These observations grew in the number and importance so that by 1879, it became possible for Father Federico Paura to issue the first public typhoon warning. Second half of 19th CE, the study of infectious diseases such as smallpox, cholera, bubonic plague, leprosy, and malaria were intensified with the participations of graduates of medicine and pharmacy from University of Santo Tomas College of Medicine. At the end of Spanish regime, the Philippines had evolved into a primary agricultural exporting economy. Progress in agriculture had been made possible by some government support for research and education in this field, but it was largely the entry of foreign capital and technology which brought about the modernizations of some sectors, notably sugar and hemp productions. The lack of interest and support for research and development of native industry, like weaving for example, eventually led to their failure to survive the competitions with foreign imports. Because of necessity and the social prestige attached to university educations, medicine and pharmacy remained the most developed science-based professions during the Spanish regime.
During First Republic, 1898 CE, the government took steps to establish a secular educational system. It created the Universidad Literaria de Filipinas as a secular state-supported institution of higher learning. It offered courses in law, medicine, surgery, pharmacy, and notary public. 1901 to 1907, the Philippine Commission, which acted as the executive and legislative body for the Philippines until 1907, it provided for the establishment of schools that would give pre-primary education with English as the medium of instruction. 1908 to 1911, the colonial authorities initially adopted a coordinated policy for the promotion of higher education in the sciences and the government research institutions and agencies performing technical functions. The University of the Philippines was created on 18 June 1908 by Act of the Philippine Legislature. 1912, 200 men and women were educated under this program in American schools. After the establishment of the University of the Philippines, scholarship for advanced studies of a scientific or technical nature in American universities were given only in preparation for assignment to jobs in the public service. 1917, Act Number 2076, Private School Act, was enacted by the Philippine legislature. The Act recognized private schools as educational institutions and not commercial ventures. 1925. In 1925, a survey of the educational system of the island was authorized. Survey, which was headed by Paul Monroe, made a comprehensive investigation of all public and private institutions of learning in the country. The Monroe survey found most private schools substandard. It reported that most of these were physically ill-equipped and with more part-time than full-time faculty members. 1933 to 1934. Act in 1933 creating the National Research Council of the Philippine Islands, or NRCP. Aside from working for the promotion of the scientific research, the NRCP actively participated in the deliberation and drafting of the provision affecting science in industry in the 1934 Constitutional Convention. All in all, during the American rule, educational and science policies were not linked with colonial economic strategy. While Filipinos were given opportunity to pursue advanced education, In science and engineering, the economy remained mostly agrarian. Free trade agreements influenced the Philippines' economic development to a large extent.
In 1946, the number of college students and graduates from public and private universities and colleges has shown tremendous increases since 1946. Nevertheless, the portion of those in agriculture, medical and natural sciences, and engineering has remained relatively low. In 1950, the U.S. Economic Survey mission to the Philippines noted in its report the threat of basic information needed by industries of the country, the neglect of experimental work, and the meager appropriation in the national budget for scientific research, including the low salaries of government scientists. In 1952, the Science Foundation of the Philippines, or SFP, were created and placed along with the Institute of Science under the Office of the President. The Institute of Nutrition was to perform research, advisory and extension functions, while the Science Foundation was to stimulate research in the sciences and engineering and promote science consciousness among the people. In 1957, a report was submitted to the President pointing out the deterioration of Philippine science since the early years of American regime. The report analyzed the causes of this decline, the lack of government support, dread of scientists of high training and ability, low morale of scientists, and a lack of public awareness of science. In 1960s, additional science agencies were created by law, which thereby expanded NSDB's organization and functions. The creation of these science agencies undoubtedly shows increasing government concern and support for the development of Philippine science and technology. The expanding number of science agencies has given rise to a demand for high-caliber scientists and engineers to undertake research and staff universities and colleges. This is designed to attract more qualified scientists to work in government and encourage young people to pursue science degrees and careers. Hence, measures have also been taken towards the improvement of the country's science and manpower.